bum 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 bum. Ba-dum, bum 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 bum. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Daring Dialogues. I'm your host tonight, Shantae Charles. I hope that you're having a great and wonderful day of love. Yes, we know that this is a time that people take out of their schedule. This day is the day that people decide to focus on love, though we know that love is something that happens every single day. But people are just choosing to focus on it today in a more specific way. Also, in case you didn't know, February 13th, which was yesterday, is a day set aside specifically for Black love. So that was actually a day that was created. You can check out that information on my Facebook page, Historical African American Images, where there is a nice little write up there about the woman who created Black Love Day. Again, that's February 13th of every year. So tonight I'm going to hop right into our reading. We are reading from What Color is My World? The Lost History of African American Inventors. And then we're going to be reading from The Fierce 44. We're going to take a look at one more person tonight. And tonight's going to be a short version of our show, but I did want to make sure that we got some Black history in on tonight. So let's start with What Color is My World by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And we're looking at Dr. Percy Lavonne Julian, the man who would become a chemist. The image that I'm showing here is of Dr. Percy Lavonne Julian, and it is an illustrated image, and it says, Sir Isaac Newton said, "If I have seen further, it is only by standing on the shoulders of giants." That's how it was for Percy. His family always valued the importance of a good education. Percy's grandfather, a former slave, had two of his fingers chopped off as punishment for learning to read and write. His grandmother, who once picked 340 pounds of cotton in one day, worked and saved her whole life to send her son James to private school. James, Percy's father, was a voracious reader who filled their house with books and loved to talk to his children about the things he read. Percy told this story about something that happened at his college graduation. At commencement time, he said, "My great-grandmother bared her shoulders and showed me for the first time the deep scars that remained from a beating she had received during the waning days of the Civil War. She went through the Negro quarters and cried out, 'Get yourselves ready, children. The Yankees are coming. The Lord has heard our prayers.' And then proudly she took my Phi Beta Kappa key in her hand and said, 'This is worth all the scars.'" The shoulders Percy stood on were strong, strong enough to inspire a whole family into the freedom that an education could bring. Born on April 11, 1899 in Birmingham, Alabama, Percy Lavonne Julian knew at a very young age that he wanted to be a scientist. His parents, descended from the enslaved, encouraged his passion for learning. Percy's mother, Elizabeth, was a teacher. His father, James, was a railroad mail carrier and an avid reader of books about math and science and philosophy. Both parents realized that a solid education was the only hope for their children's success. Percy, the oldest child, was forced by segregation to attend a school with no science labs, unlike the whites' only schools nearby. His parents, however, accepted no excuses, and soon after his graduation from high school, Percy left home for DePaul University in Indiana, which accepted a few Black students. The world was ready for a change, and he would help it change by being the first college-educated member of the Julian family. Discrimination continued at DePaul, but Percy always heard his parents' voices encouraging him. "No excuses, son." He studied hard, worked many odd jobs, played in a jazz band, and helped out at the church. He graduated with many honors. He was valedictorian and a member of both the Sigma Chi and Phi Beta Kappa honor societies. As his class's most outstanding graduate, Percy was sure he would receive many offers from universities to continue his education. His white classmates received offers, but none came to him. He soon discovered that no one at the universities believed there was a place for a black chemist. To be a chemist, Percy needed to earn his doctorate degree, but he was not accepted into any program. In 1921, Percy took a teaching job at a predominantly black school, Fisk University in Tennessee. After 2 years at Fisk, he was awarded the Austin Fellowship in Chemistry at Harvard University. His academic achievement was outstanding. He earned his master's degree with straight A's, but these were overlooked because of his skin color. Harvard declined to continue his teaching assistantship out of fear that white students would not want a black man as their teacher. Percy had to leave Harvard without the chance to earn his doctorate. He then taught at another predominantly black school, Howard University in Washington, D.C., until 1929. There, he won a Rockefeller Foundation Fellowship to study at the University of Vienna in Austria. Percy loved Europe. He worked with a demanding professor, Ernst Spath, to recreate chemical compounds previously found only in nature. Percy also enjoyed the freedom from much of the racism he had experienced. He had friends of many races and nationalities. He regularly attended the opera, went skiing, played piano for his friends, introducing them to the lively spirituals that he had been raised on. In 1931, he received his PhD from the University of Vienna, becoming the third African American to earn a doctorate in chemistry. He returned to DePauw University, where he was joined by a friend from Vienna, Dr. Joseph Pickel. Together, they worked to synthesize physostigmine, used to treat glaucoma, Alzheimer's disease, and other ailments, which they had achieved in 1935. Despite acclaim over Percy's achievement, DePauw refused to grant him a full-time teaching position because he was black. Tired of constant rejection by universities, Percy turned to private industry. He received an offer to work for the Institute of Paper Chemistry in Appleton, Wisconsin. The offer was later withdrawn when the institute realized that Appleton was a sundown town and blacks were legally prohibited from spending the night there. In 1936, Percy went to work for Glidden Paint Company as director of the Soya Product Division, which sought to develop uses for Glidden's vast soybean holdings. The division soon became Glidden's most profitable part of the company. In the 1950s, Percy focused his research on the new miracle drug cortisone, which was derived from the adrenal glands of cattle. Cortisone reduced swelling, which alleviated pain from all kinds of afflictions and injuries. Unfortunately, the drug was expensive to create and few could afford it. But Percy developed a method of synthesizing cortisone from the soy plant, which made it cheaper and more widely available. In 1953, Percy started his own company, Julian Laboratories, in Oak Park, Illinois. He then opened branches in Mexico and Guatemala, where he used the local yams to synthesize more products. He later sold his company for $2.3 million and worked as a consultant to major companies in the U.S. and abroad. In 1964, he founded Julian Research Institute. Being a groundbreaker, Percy Julian was naturally attracted to someone as courageous and ambitious as he was. That's why in 1935 he married Anna Johnson, who went on to become the first African American woman to earn a PhD in sociology from the University of Pennsylvania. It was 50 years before another black woman earned a doctorate in sociology at that school. Racism and hate followed Percy. In late 1950, Percy and his family purchased a home in Oak Park, Illinois. A few months later, while the family was out of town, the house was bombed. The explosion took place outside the bedrooms of their two children, Percy Jr., who was 10, and Faith, who was 6. This attack made the Julians dig in even deeper, and their neighbors rallied to support them, welcoming the family and condemning the attack. Percy Julian died of liver cancer on April 19, 1975. His many honors included 19 honorary doctorate degrees. His 1973 election to the National Academy of Sciences, where he was the second African American scientist inducted from any field, a U.S. postage stamp honoring him in 1993, and in 1990 induction into the National Inventors Hall of Fame. But his real legacy was something that few others could claim. He reduced the pain and suffering of millions of people. That is the inventor, Percy Lavonne Julian. And our last reading for this evening, as I said, we're doing a short reading tonight, is Mr. Duke Ellington, composer and band leader. Duke Ellington lived from 1899 to 1974. He is included in the Fierce 44 because he is the embodiment of jazz. And this is a wonderful rendering of Duke Ellington. Darling, and hit off. Thank you. Edward Duke Ellington started playing piano as a 7-year-old, and by the time he was 17, he was working as a professional musician. A few years later, he moved to New York City and was soon a regular at the famous Cotton Club in Harlem, launching a career as one of the greatest American musicians of all time. Just as soul music and Motown provided the soundtrack for the 60s rights movement, big band swing music furnished the score for the Harlem Renaissance of the 1920s. While many famous band leaders were playing then, including Count Basie and Benny Goodman, Ellington was the best. A pianist and an orchestra leader, music seemed to pour from Ellington. He wrote more than 1,000 tunes, many of which are considered classics, including Don't Get Around Much Anymore and Satin Doll. His original songs rank among the first examples of crossover pop. They captured the essence of the Black experience, but were also irresistible to the white audience. Unlike other band leaders who wanted their musicians to meld their sounds together, Ellington was famous for writing music to highlight individual artists. He liked to feature people with unique styles and was constantly rewriting even his biggest hits. Ellington received many honors, including 11 Grammy Awards, 13 Grammy Hall of Fame nods, Presidential Medal of Freedom, and a Pulitzer Prize special citation, and was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. But Sir Duke's legacy is bigger than any award. Whenever swing or big band music is mentioned, Ellington's name leaps to mind as he is the embodiment of jazz. All right. So that is our reading for tonight. I really enjoyed learning a little bit more about Julian, Percy Lavonne Julian, and a little bit more about Duke Ellington. So I encourage you this week to get into some jazz, as jazz is one of the embodiments of the Harlem Renaissance. Take a listen to some of the jazz classics this week and see if you can decide on what kind of songs do you enjoy the most and from what band leader of the time. All right. So this has been another episode of Daring Dialogues, and I've been your host tonight, Shantae Charles. I want to thank you for taking time out tonight to come and join me to learn and to read some more Black history. Tomorrow, we'll have a little bit longer time together. We'll probably be here for the majority of an hour. So I hope to see you back on tomorrow. We'll have some more reading out of the 44th, as well as some incredible and amazing Black women. Until next time, remember, light is the most daring opposition to darkness. So continue to go out and be light. Take care, everyone, and God bless.